To the man's question from the Pandal, who is healthy if he is going to die? Prabhupada asked. I am so healthy that I'm going to die tomorrow. This is their health. Almost every one of these questions, said Tamal Krishna Goswami, was about the body. Prabhupada, Krishna says, Nahanyati hanyamane sharirai. That is healthy. When you do not die, although the body is destroyed, that is healthy life. What is this healthy life? The body is finished and everything. Actually, everything is not finished. But people are kept in that ignorance. They think the body is finished, then everything is finished. That is not the fact. Krishna very clearly said, Najayati Murti Vakadachin. If you do not question, then how is it possible? But that is the most important question. Prabhupada mentioned that despite the United Nations World Health Organization, still everyone was going to die. Where is health, he asked. Such foolish things are going on all over the world. So organize, introduce reality to them and spread it, slow but sure. We shouldn't be impatient and compromise, said Tamal Krishna Goswami, just to be popular. There's no question of becoming impatient, said Srila Prabhupada. You have got a diamond. If there is no buyer of the diamond, then does that mean you have to throw it away? You must know that here is a diamond. If I want it, I must pay the proper price. Then I want to establish why India's culture should be lost in this way. I'm not a cheap patriot. I want to give Indian culture to the whole world. I'm not going to cheat people, taking Bhagavad Gita and speaking all nonsense. I want to present Bhagavad Gita as it is. That is my mission. Why should I cheat you? We will try to follow your message properly, said Mr. Mahadevia. Why should India's big culture be lost for the matter of these rascal leaders, said Prabhupada? They should be stopped. Krishna consciousness is all inclusive. Just like the economic question, Ananda Bhavanti Bhutani. Krishna says grow food. It is practical. But when I was traveling, I saw millions of clerks coming to get education. And who is growing the food? Then these clerks have to be provided in these pigeonholes and depend on ration. Is that civilization? Throngs of people are coming. They're coming like ants. And when you go to the village, it is all vacant. No one is interested to produce food. Everyone is interested to live in the city, in these pigeonholes, and go to the cinema, the brothel, go to the club, learn how to drink, how to become gentlemen. Is that civilization? The human aim of life is lost. You do not know why you are going to the offices, why you are eating. They are keeping humanity in animal mentality, a doggish mentality. University education is a doggish mentality. The dog wags his tail as soon as you give him some food. Oh yes, said Mr. Mahadevia, for application for a job, there are 5 jobs and 5 dozen people apply. Is that education, said Prabhupada? Better not to be educated. Those who are not educated, they can produce 5 rupees worth of potatoes and sit down anywhere. After spending so much money living at the cost of fathers and mothers, they have no job and no food. Then they plan some political party, Naxalite or this or that party, and join the political movement and help Indira Gandhi. You are paid to make propaganda. But all that has vanished now, said Mr. Mahadevia. That plan has failed completely. Like many other Indians, Mr. Mahadevia was hopeful that with the new election, conditions could be improving. No, said Prabhupada, another one will come. This unemployment is there. When I was a child, we were purchasing mustard oil for 3 annas, and now it is selling for 13 rupees per kilo. Will a change in government bring this 13 rupees to 3 annas? Then where's the benefit? Stool is stool, whether you take it from the top side or the bottom side. A few devotees entered the room and said, while Prabhupada encouraged them all in preaching, he said that people could not get relief through government, but through Krishna consciousness. Krishna and his devotees were for everyone, not for a particular nation or person. The people are in darkness, said Prabhupada, and the politicians are keeping them like dogs, hogs, and camels, taking a vote from them and becoming a leader. Nobody protested last night, however, that I called all men dogs, hogs, and camels. No one came forward and said, you are using very strong words, because it is all a fact. They especially liked your idea, said Hridanda Goswami, of American money and Indian culture. They applauded for that. Yes, that is my mission, said Prabhupada. I am doing that. I am bringing money from America. Nobody is paying me. It is not a joke. 10 lakhs of rupees. Who else brings? Even big export companies don't bring so much, said Gopal Krishna. And they will be glad, said Prabhupada. They have got money and they're getting culture. I'm trying for United Nations. There's the real attempt. Not this United Nations, all rogues and thieves and cheaters, barking dogs. I'm trying for real United Nations. Let us cooperate together. Srila Prabhupada's disciples rallied to hear him speak like this, and they resolved to somehow counteract the forces of ignorance through Krishna consciousness. He said they should proceed slowly but surely, just as he had done. He had begun humbly loitering in the streets of New York. And before that, he'd been living alone in the Radha Damodar temple. And now there was the Bombay temple, a palace that would be crowded with thousands of guests to see the deity and attend cultural programs. Do it enthusiastically, said Srila Prabhupada. You are all young men. Our enthusiasm is coming from you, Srila Prabhupada, said Tama Krishna. I am old man, said Prabhupada faintly, but the devotees didn't accept that. Srila Prabhupada was Nava Yovana, spiritually ever fresh. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Have you got any of that, any of this sticky stuff to put on that?
I don't have this, but they have like a sticker that is meant for fixing the book.
Yeah. Okay, so you can take that with you. So reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, The Forest of Enjoyment, which is chapter 14, text 3. We're in the mountains of enjoyment right now. So do 4 instead, yeah? There's no one here anyway. Okay, so the Sanskrit for that is Yajyamhu ha va ete sad indra namana kamana dashava evate tad yata purishasyadanam yakinchintama poyakam bahu kritra digatam shaksha parama purishadana lakshana yoso damastu to sapraya udaranti tadamyam danam dashana spashana shravana davana grahana sankalpa vyabhyasa griha gramyo pabogena ka kuna tasya jitatmana yatasa tasya vilam panti. Responsibly, please. Yasyam. Oh, sorry, that's 2. We're going to do 3. Okay, so I'll go through the Sanskrit. Ata, in this way. Cha, also. Yatra, in which. Kotumbika, the family members. Dada apacha adaya, beginning with the wife and children. Namna, by name only. Kamana, by their behavior. Vikrasigala, tigers and jackals. Eva, certainly. Anichata, ta, of one who does not desire to spend his wealth. Api, certainly. Kadayasya, being too miserly. Kutambina, who is surrounded by family members. Uranakavat, like a lamb. Samrakshayamananam, although protected. Mishata, of one who is observing. Api, even. Haranti, they forcibly take away. Translation. My dear king, family members in this material world go under the names of wife and children, but actually they behave like tigers and jackals. A herdsman tries to protect his sheep to the best of his ability, but the tigers and foxes take them away by force. Similarly, although a miserly man wants to guard his money very carefully, his family members take away all his assets forcibly, even though he is very vigilant. responsibly, please. My dear King, family members in this material world go under the names of wife and children, but actually they behave like tigers and jackals. A herdsman tries to protect his sheep to the best of his ability, but the tigers and foxes take them away by force. Similarly, although a miserly man wants to guard his money very carefully, his family members take away all his assets forcibly, even though he is very vigilant. Prabhupada Ki Jai. One Hindi poet has sung, Deen ka dakini rat ka bagini palak palak rahu kuse. During the daytime, the wife is compared to a witch, and at night she is compared to a tigress. Her only business is sucking the blood of her husband both day and night. During the day, they are household expenditures, and the money earned by the husband at the cost of his blood is taken away. At night, due to sex pleasure, the husband discharges blood in the form of semen. In this way, he is bled by his wife, both day and night. And yet he is so crazy that he very carefully maintains her. Similarly, the children are also like tigers, jackals, and foxes. As tigers, jackals, and foxes take away the lambs, despite a herdsman's vigilant protection, children take away the father's money, although the father supervises the money himself. Thus, family members may be called wives and children, but actually they are plunderers. That's a really nice one for Sunday program, Om Agyanatamaranda Shaganandina Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupagadam Dadati Swavadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhunichananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpa Trubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Padidinam Bhavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So Prabhupada saying in the purport that there's a Hindi poet, and he wrote a song comparing the wife to a witch and a tigress, and the only business is sucking blood in the form of money and semen. So in this way he's bled both day and night. But he is so crazy that he carefully maintains them. Thus family members may be called wives and children, but actually they are plunderers. So that's quite heavy. There was one religious group actually, and they had a convention, and they wanted to behave like they were in heaven. So everybody had to turn up clean with the nails clipped and all with the Sunday best on. And then they went as families and they sat around together and had tea and biscuits, but nobody was allowed to say anything rude or do anything, no picking the nose or doing anything. They had to pretend they were in heaven and behave how they would in heaven. And so the whole family was there, pretending this is how they would be if they were in heaven. So the happiness is based on the idea that the whole family will be together eternally. And that's heaven. But this is a different look at it. That actually the family members are actually not quite as nice as they seem. And there's a song, isn't it, by Govinda Das, what assurance of happiness is there? Putra Edana Yovana, Putra Parijana. Even if all your family members gather around you and you have, they're considered in the Bhagavatam as fallible soldiers because they can't ultimately protect you from the onslaught of death. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says that if the family members are all Krishna conscious, then the whole situation changes because they're helping you to remember Krishna and they're helping you to engage in service to Krishna. So we change the situation from Griha Medi to Grihasta, where it becomes an ashram for spiritual advancement. So just a question of changing how we, it is said that nobody should become a father or a teacher or a guru unless he's able to deliver his dependents. So the situation in the material world is sad because the person is in a boat which is sinking, and then he's inviting people to climb up onto his boat. And if the children were old enough when they were born to ask, do you know how to sail this boat? And the father says, well, no, actually, I don't really know what the human form of life is for, but why don't you just get on board anyway? And as they get on board, the boat, which is already sinking, starts sinking even faster. So not a good situation to bring people into. First of all, Natvam sandashito datra dushtaram nishtitesatam kalasafam harampam samkar navana idanavam. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross over this difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. So in this particular context, it seems like, oh, the poor father, he's being taken advantage of. But the fact is that everyone in the material world is guilty, whether he's male, female, whether he's a child, whether he's a grandfather, whoever he is. If they don't know what the goal of life is and they're pursuing their selfish desires, then nobody can help anybody. So it's not a question of, we're putting the kids down or we're putting the wife down. Everyone is getting put down by the material energy. And in this case, it's just, he's being used as an example, but you could just as easily take the wife and say, look at the poor wife. She thinks she's got a nice husband, but he's just using her for his sense gratification, and he's not going to deliver her, and he's going to entangle her more and more in material energy. So he's bad, he's guilty for doing that. So ultimately, everyone is being victimized. Everyone is actually a victim of the material energy. And they say in the forgiveness course, one of the things that you do is the person who's transgressed upon you is you reflect back on the fact that he wasn't out to hurt you that day. It's just that he was already hurt and you got in the way. So we don't blame anybody. We blame ourselves that we're here in the material world with this type of karma and this type of situation. And the way we get out is through forgiveness and compassion. Otherwise we become more embroiled, more entangled. So that principle of humanity is that whatever anybody else can do, it's also possible for me to do, because no one is intrinsically evil and nobody is intrinsically lazy, but they're victimized by the material energy. So we can have much more compassion for people when we don't blame them as, you would never catch me doing that. And that's like a kind of justification then for putting the person down or punishing him or discriminating against him. No, if anyone can do it, then anyone can do it. Anyone and everyone can do it under the influence of the material energy. So if we take this passage in that context, then we see it's not a question of identifying this person as being bad or that person as being bad, by helping us to understand the insidious nature of the material illusion and how it appears very nice on the surface. But when we scratch under the surface, we see actually, no, it's just cultivating animalistic propensities for everyone that's involved. And then animalistic propensities leads to an animal birth. We lose the human form of life. The reason we lose the human form of life is because we don't want freedom of choice. We want freedom from choice, because freedom of choice implies accountability. And if you're not keen on being held accountable, then get ready, because you're going to be taking an animal birth in your next life. And then the animal, you never see a dog up in court. What's the dog guilty of? Is your name Rover? Yes. Woof, woof. And do you plead guilty to taking the butcher's sausages? You don't find that because, well, he's a dog, you know what you expect. He doesn't know. He just sees the sausages and he just runs away with them. He's not held accountable. So he has freedom from choice. We have freedom of choice. Freedom of choice means that nobody else is to blame but ourselves. If you take a person who's unhappy and say, why are you unhappy? If he says, I am unhappy because this person did this, and this situation happened, and this went like this and that. No. The reason you're unhappy is because you've chosen to be unhappy or chosen to be happy. It's up to you. You have freedom of choice. They say that if a story makes you unhappy, if you tell a story about something, oh, what just happened? Say the house went on fire. And although actually there's an interesting story. One man had saved up all his money for his family to go on a voyage, and it was like a big cruise, you know, and they were really, really poor, and he'd saved the money up for years and years and years, and finally he bought the tickets, and just as they were about to go on the cruise, one of his children, I think it was his youngest son, fell very, very ill. And they were in a real quandary. Should we just go on the voyage and leave him behind, let somebody else look after him? But they were very concerned that the boy may not survive, you know, so they thought better if we stay and give him as much loving care as we possibly can. So they did stay, and he lost all his money on the tickets. So he was very sad because he would never be able to get that opportunity again, you know. Anyway, a few days later, there was a headline in the papers, and the headline was that the Titanic had hit an iceberg and gone under. And that was the ship that they'd had the tickets for. So it was the same thing that happened, but the story changed. He changed the story. Suddenly, from the kid being the cause of his suffering and the loss of all his money, the kid became the person that saved his whole family's life. So the events stay the same, but you can change the story to make it so that you can be happy. And that's up to you how you do that. You work out how you do it. Whatever happens to you in life, you can change the story so that it always comes up that you're happy. Whatever it is that happens to you. Any questions or comments? It's kind of like a slap in the face, really, to kind of shake people up from the illusion of being in the material world, you know. So Bhagavatam's full of statements like that, so that we don't settle down and become comfortable. And if you look at the way the Vedic culture is set up, the Varnashram, the person lives for 100 years, and he spends 75 of those 100 years outside of family life, either training as a brahmachari or vanaprastha or sannyas. So there's only a very, very small portion of the life, 1/4 of the life, which is put aside. And even then, that's optional. But if the person must do it, then in a very restricted way, he can establish a household and have wife and children. But in no way is it ever implied that this is going to be okay now, this is permanent. You can just settle down in this situation and be careful, be comfortable, and everything will be fine. It's never like that in the Vedic culture. So sometimes these statements are there to help us realize why it is like that and to understand what the dangers are of the whole illusion, the illusory presentation by the material energy that you can be cozy, you can get yourself a nice cottage, and with roses around the doorway, and a nice cozy fire burning, and a loving wife, and delightful, affectionate children that just want you to stroke their heads and smell their hair, and everything's cozy, and there's no problems, everything's fine. So that's called, there's a was a Russian philosopher who was a psychologist actually, and he analyzed how advertising works upon people. His name was Berger, and Berger called it a glamour image that is presented on the advertising board. And the glamour image is the anticipation of enjoyment, which he says is the most intense, attractive feature of whatever the product is that you're trying to sell. So the man is coming back from work. You see this beautiful picture of the man, and he's all he's got a scarf on and a big heavy overcoat, and it's dark and it's raining and there's sleet on the ground. It looks very icy cold. It's all blues and blacks, and he's trudging up the path. He's had a looks like he's had a really exhausting day at work, and he's chapping on the door, and the door is just open ajar, just a couple of inches, and it's letting out this beautiful golden beam of light, which is cast along the sleet and snow, and you can just see some coals burning in the background, and nice golden colors all starting to come out, and the wife is opening the door with a big affectionate smile on his face, and it looks like, wow, once he gets in there, he's going to be so happy, you know, and maybe he's going back to a cup of Horlicks or something, you know. But once the door opens, you know, the wife's got a fag hanging out her mouth, one of her teeth are missing, she's got rollers in her hair, and she says, "What time do you call this?" And there goes the illusion, you know, it all comes crashing down. So Berger says it's the anticipation of enjoyment that is most attractive. And that's, we're thinking that we're going to get the bliss, the eternal bliss and full knowledge is going to come. And it's being conveyed in this glamour image, although people don't really understand what it is. But what they're really looking for, like George Harrison says, they're looking for Krishna. They're not looking for Horlicks or the latest car. They're looking for Krishna. He's the only one that will give them this permanent situation, enjoyment that they're looking for.
So I wonder, you know, this kind of description in Bhagavatam, because, you know, some people may think or say, you know, my family is not like this, you know.
Yeah.
It's a very loving and nice people, you know, with, you know, with goodness or something. So it's like is it something that people cannot see and the illusion, or there may be some families that are very nice, with Bhagavatam showing some sort of worst case scenario, you know, like a traumatic, you know, passion combination, you know, or the tendencies leading to.
Well, there's an interesting thing about truth that devotees, especially young devotees, tend to forget. Along with truth, which is just as important, comes timing. And if you force a person to see the truth inappropriately, then it can force them to reject the truth. Now they say in counseling that nobody likes to be diagnosed. Nobody likes being diagnosed. It's a very it puts people in a very uncomfortable situation when you're saying, well, I saw you doing this and that, and this indicates this and indicates that. And therefore, because of that, this means this, that, and the next thing is, you know, nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be interfered with or imposed upon in such a way. And they say for counseling, the best way to give somebody a little tip or a nudge in the right direction is to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until the person finally says, oh, I think I was a bit passionate the way I did that, or I think that was a bit messy, wasn't it? I think I could have done that better. And then, yeah, I think you're right, actually. So in material life, people are in the illusion, and it's just a question of time. One thing's for sure, they cannot stay in the illusion permanently. It's a question of time. And if you have good relationships, then at the time when they say, you know, I don't really think my family members are as nice as I was thinking they were, you know, then you can, well, actually, it's funny you should say that. So it's not so confrontational. It has to be supplementary, complementary to where the person is at. so that as he evolves. Shruti Kirti, I was listening last night, he said a very nice story about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he said, Shruti Kirti was saying, I'm a bit of a lightweight, I couldn't take Srila Prabhupada's chastisement. He said, once or twice Srila Prabhupada did shout at me. He said, no, I was devastated. So Prabhupada realized I couldn't take it. So they were going down to the beach anyway to swim. There was 3 of them at first, then just 2, and then finally just Shruti Kirti that was going on his own. And when he came back, one of the devotees said, Srila Prabhupada wants to see you. And he's so angry. He said, why is he so angry? He said, because you shouldn't be going down to the beach on your own. So he was waiting to go in. He waited till after Prabhupada had finished eating, and he was really nervous to go in. And then he went in and said, Srila Prabhupada, did you want to see me? And Prabhupada said, no. And he said, oh, I heard you were really angry with me. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, oh, one of the devotees was saying that he didn't like me going down to the beach on my own. And Prabhupada said, you like? He says, oh, it's very nice, Prabhupada. I swim about in the water. It's very nice. Yes. Prabhupada says, then that's okay. But Shruti Kirti said, he never went down to the beach again because he realized that what Prabhupada had done was, they say that if you want to tell the daughter-in-law off, you tell the daughter off, and the daughter-in-law sees it, and then she realizes. So he didn't yell at him, he yelled at one of his servants, who then told him Prabhupada's really angry with him. When he went to Prabhupada, Prabhupada just, and then it was up to him then to work it out for himself, you see. So understanding psychology is very, very important. It's not that it's Maya, or Prabhupada doesn't say it in his books. You'd have to know that to see from Prabhupada's example. You'd have to know how to be able to deliver the truth in such a way that the person can accept it without feeling intimidated.
It's interesting, when Gauranga Prabhu explains, then he delivers his presentations, he's actually basing everything in Shastra. So actually the whole psychology and culture is in Shastra, but somehow or another we're just not able to extract it.
Yeah.
This is where the psychological book is helpful.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're able to read and know Shastra in and out, and you get the same information from there as well.
Yeah, because Krishna doesn't say to Arjuna, he says, how have these impurities come upon you? You're better than this. That's how he chastises him. You're better than this. Why are you speaking like this? So that's psychology, rather than discouraging Arjuna. So if you have at least a rudimentary understanding of how people work, and how you can encourage them rather than discourage them, so that they want to, they're inspired to want to do the right thing. And sometimes you have to be really patient. You have to wait for the person to do it wrong 9 times, and the 10th time they do it right. They probably just do it right by accident. And then you go over and you say, oh, you've held the handkerchief correctly. Did you know that in the Archer piety, it shows that you hold the handkerchief like this. You have these 2 fingers here and these 2 fingers here, and you clip it like that. And that's how you're supposed to offer. That's where, according to I remember I was shown that book. And if you watch pujaris, seasoned pujaris, when they offer the handkerchief, they offer it like this. But if you just to go up to somebody and pull the handkerchief and say, no, that's bogus. So you'd have to watch them do it like that 9 times wrong. And then the 10th time, if they happen to ask them to just, oh, Prabhu, that is so amazing. That's exactly what it looks like in the book. You are such a Poka Pujari, Prabhu. That is amazing. What a fantastic example.
I'm going to go to an ashram with a beard, and then they carry it for a long time. And then one day they shave the beard. It's wow, it looks so amazing. That you might keep it every day. Keep it longer than 1 day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with, people could say, well, Prabhupada doesn't show you anywhere in the books how to change a spark plug in a car, or how to check that the tires are inflated properly. But he does say go from A to B. in the most efficient way possible and spread Krishna consciousness. So that entails having a basic understanding of how cars function. Otherwise, you're not going to get from A to B. So you'll have to learn all this other stuff. If you want to cultivate good relationships with devotees, then it'll be very helpful if you know a certain amount of psychology. And the interesting thing about counseling is it says the very first person you have to work on is yourself. Because if you're crazy and you're all over the place, you're not going to be helping anybody. So you need to work on yourself, first of all, and work on your appreciation. If you're finding it hard to appreciate devotees, then you need to go back to the drawing board. And that's the challenge, because if you can appreciate the devotees, then everything becomes very easy. But if you can't, then it becomes very, very difficult, And devotees will move from different situations, and go from temple to temple. But the good thing about staying in the one place is that you can learn to address the issues that are disturbing you right there and then. You can take the bull by the horns. If you keep running and running all the time, and you never really get to the point of dealing with why it is you're so disturbed by other people, then you won't get free of that anatta. Because one of the biggest anattas is not wanting to be in the association of devotees, or appreciating the association of devotees. It's an unwanted thing. It jeopardizes everything else, because if you reject the association of devotees, you may think, well, I'm just going to go and live in the Himalayas in a nice cave, and I'll have solar panels, I'll be able to get Wi-Fi, I'll grow my own spinach, I'll have water, everything will be fine, But you won't get a chance to. All the devotional qualities, the 26 qualities of a devotee, they're all qualities that you only learn by interacting with other living entities. How can you be humble in a cave on your own? There's nobody to be humble to. How can you be tolerant or patient, or all the qualities that a devotee has? You learn them in the association of devotees, not on your own. So it's good to take the blame. If somebody's annoying you, understand it's not that they are annoying, it's that you have certain needs and these people aren't fulfilling them, and therefore you have these feelings of frustration. But it's not them, it's your needs that are causing your feelings. So don't take it personally when people are only being whoever they are. They're not being who they are on purpose to annoy you. It's just who they are, So if it annoys you, you have to learn. If you can learn to love them, they say when you can see yourself in someone else, that is the beginning of love. So if you can see yourself in someone else, so instead of alienating yourself from them and thinking this person is a different species, he's something that I would never be like or do, then it's very hard to cultivate relationships. But if you can appreciate the humanity in everybody, and everyone is essentially the same, and they all have the same needs, then it's much easier to cultivate relationships. And you may have to go off and work on yourself, because it's actually easier to change yourself than it is to change others. And others change when you change automatically. You can try that as an experiment. If you want someone to change, you just change yourself. And the person you want to change will change automatically. Because part of the reason why they're behaving the way they are is because of the way that you're treating them. And so it's very heavy. They go into the names of wife and children. And he's saying wife and children, but it's everyone, isn't it? It's uncles, aunties, bosses, friends, anyone that's leading a materialistic life. The ultimate essential predominating factor is that I am out for myself. I'm out to gratify my senses at the expense of everybody else. That's the underlying principle of material life, isn't it? Every man jack for himself. Everyone's competing. That's what material life is. Everyone's competing to be what they can never be. What can never actually. Nobody can actually achieve it.
Just crossed my mind, it looks like really, really heavy, but actually you can see graphically dissipation around the Christmas time. You can see people's faces how their blood is getting sucked, and some people are so depressed. It's just like a very graphic example of dissipation.
Because sense gratification is based upon anticipation. It's the anticipation, and it's the anticipation which always ends up being an anticlimax, because their expectations are always much higher than what the material energy can provide. So it's that's the nature of the material world. And imagine if it was 1,000 times better, then it would be 1,000 times more difficult to see. But it's like that in the heavenly planets where they enjoy. I mean, in the heavenly planets, they don't grow old. Their bodies don't smell. They don't get pregnant. They just have a really, really. It's just an ongoing party all the time. There's no reactions. They can just enjoy themselves. Every now and again, they may see Vishnu, may see some incarnation taking birth, and everything's fine, and they just have to be pious. And so to see the insidious nature of the material energy is even harder. I mean, it's hard enough to see it when you're suffering, never mind when you actually are enjoying, But the way out is by being compassionate, because you could read this and think, well, from now on, I'm going to hate my wife and children, and I'm going to give them a really hard time because they're just like jackals. So when I see the wife tonight, I'm giving her a good telling off. But it's actually the solution to the whole situation is to be compassionate, have compassion, and help people to see, well, this isn't the way. By being selfish like this and trying to exploit each other, this isn't the way it's going to work. And that's why the husband is called Guru Pati, because he's supposed to lead the family out of it all. And there's one book called Walks with My Father, and it's about a young girl who used to go on a walk in the morning with her father, and he would talk to her. And most of the things that she learned about life, she learned by those walks with her father. So this is what a real head of the family is meant to be. Actually, he's supposed to enlighten and cultivate real living relationships. It's reciprocal, you see. For relationships to really work, they have to be reciprocal. Can't just be take. Dadati patiginati guyamakti prititi bongtai bochai chicheva sadvatim pratilakshanam. And of all the living exchanges, the biggest deposit in the emotional bank account is don't just do something, stand there. Just stand there and give the person your full attention. It's the biggest investment you can make in an emotional bank account with somebody else. Give them your presence, give them your attention, listen to them.
So there's a really nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, where the items of knowledge are described. That says freedom from entanglement with children, mind, home, and the rest. And then book 4 to as far as for detachment from children, wife, and home, it does not mean that one should have no feeling for these. They
Have
are
no
objects of affection. But when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the whole present is Krishna consciousness. It kind of goes on.
Yeah.
Breaking it down.
Yeah, so it's a great art. We're talking here family situation. So if it was a grihastha family, then it would be the art of association, learning how to give gifts and receive gifts and make nice prasad and inquire confidentially. This is really what living relationships are based upon.
Similar milestone in the purpose. In all cases, one should be detached from the happiness and the stress of having a life, because in this world one can never be fully happy or fully miserable.
And there's also a nice verse, a nice song, Vifele Sevenu Kripana Durajana. And it's Kripa Durajana is wicked and miserly man. For a fraction of flickering happiness, I've uselessly served wicked and miserly man. So it's the wicked miserliness that is the real enemy in whatever form it comes, and whichever person is being afflicted by it. But the person that's inflicting the wickedness and the miserliness, they're the person that need the compassion more than anybody else. So it's, because the whole idea of the family situation is, by doing this, I'm going to increase loving exchanges, loving reciprocation. This is the hope. But you can't do that without training. You can't just, if you go by default, default is animal instinct. That's what default is in the material world. If you just go by what you're wired up to behave like according to the material energy, then that's animal life, you see. And then if you want to override that and come into the human form of life and have real loving relationships, then there has to be training to do that. Everyone has to be trained. What it means to show genuine love and affection as well. That's it. They're thinking, well, if we have a good sex life, then it means we've got a good relationship and things are going to be fine, And that's the big fallacy of Western culture. And that's foretold in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, that they will marry on the strength of sex attraction. And then they will divorce and separate on the basis that the sex enjoyment isn't there anymore. So what's the point? Let's move on and try it with someone else. Maybe I'll work with them instead. I'll try the secretary. So that's not actually the fundamental principle of a living exchange, is giving, receiving gifts, inquiring confidentially, hearing the person, offering them food, accepting food. Who would ever believe it? Who would ever think I could have more of a living relationship with my wife if I didn't engage in these gross acts of sense gratification? Because what's cultivated by that restraint is respect. And we see just recently Meenu's husband, Omeo, left this world. And you see, Prabhupada was saying, you can see what a real chaste wife is like, because he said that if it was hundreds of years ago, you could see how they would prefer the fire of the satirite to the fire of separation. So this is real. This is a real loving relationship based upon respect and restraint, and then the emotions go much deeper. The affection and the attachment goes much deeper to a much profound level. Isn't that interesting? You would think, oh, I will show my love, my deep love and appreciation for my wife by abstaining from sense gratification with her. That's why Prabhupada said, every woman should get married in this movement, and every man should stay brahmachari. So every woman should get married to a brahmachari who stays brahmachari even when they're married. Then everything's fine. Everything works out great. And then there's not even a need for separation. They could go into Vanaprastha together and assist each other like sister and brother, as a team, a dynamic team. And then they can offer shelter to other married couples that would maybe find it hard to approach a sannyasi or a brahmachari. They can approach married couples that are steady in their Krishna consciousness and can help them. Jai, yes, Kangaruvinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi Haribo,
Grace and Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu ki.
Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Jai.